Okay, so who went out last night? I did. So I wanted to really thank Echelon for letting me do the event today, but I was like, oh, I got the first event day too. So I kind of went out a little bit last night, so I apologize. I'm just not feeling that great. Got a little bit of a hangover. So I thought it'd be kind of appropriate to talk about hangovers today. What's that? No. I'm not drunk. I'm just hungover. So it was really nice. I went out last night with all the different kinds of parties in the city. How many startups are here? Like here? Any startups? It was good because I got to go out with those guys last night. I really appreciate the startups that let me hang out last night. They had some great parties. It's good. I actually invested in a unicorn. They say there's no unicorns in Asia. There are. I met a recent graduate from one of our accelerator programs here in Singapore. He wasn't doing too well. But overall, it was a pretty good night. And then I got to hang out with the VCs. Any VCs here? Any? No? The VCs had a pretty good party. Quite enjoyed that one. A lot of money, a little bit more money than startups. Had a good time. It was a little bit over the top, but it was mostly the money guys, and I quite enjoyed that one. And then the government had a party, and we're lucky here in Singapore. The government's actually been very, very supportive, and I think we're seeing that a bit in Asia too, right? The governments have gotten more involved. Here we have a great support. In Malaysia, for example, Magic, and they got Cradle, and I went to their party, but I really felt uncomfortable. I wasn't quite just right. We were just kind of holding hands, and it was kind of a dry party. But so my question is today, seriously, who has a hangover? No, really. Anyone? There we go. Who has a hangover? Seriously, raise your hands. So we actually have a little present for you. We have hangover paramedics. So if you did go out last night and you would like a hangover relief kit, you can raise your hand. And we got everything in there to help you ease through the day today. So, and if anyone else wants a hangover kit, we got you covered. There's an isotonic drink in there. There's an Alka-Seltzer. That should clear your head. So go ahead and take one. Enjoy one. Hopefully that'll clear your day. And we'll move on to the real part of the event. So I wanted to talk a little bit about actually what I call a technology hangover. And a technology hangover for startups, I kind of define that in a few different ways. And it's really startups that are suffering from the drag of technology. Raise your hands. Be sure to get a nice hangover kit. And these are startups that are, for example, they're tech-bound, right? So startups that feel like they can't execute because of lack of technology, for example. Or they find that technology is too expensive. It's too expensive to implement, it's too expensive to hire, it's too expensive to achieve their goals. They can't find the right engineers, the right developers. They have really bad uptime of their systems. The systems start to get unstable, they get buggy. Really big problems we have scaling up, being able to address your customer base. Okay. Another big thing that I think we see with a lot of startups. Thank you, hangover paramedics. So if you didn't get a hangover bag, we've got more around. So appreciate that. A lot of startups too actually find out that their minimum viable product is not so viable after all. Right? They have technology. They have people. Maybe they did an early product prototype. Maybe they did that as an accelerator. Maybe they did that on their own. And then as they start to get to scale, they find out that the technology skills that it takes to build a minimum viable product are not actually the same skills it takes to support real paying customers. That happens quite a lot. Another thing we get is false assumptions about technology. What technology can do. I can tell you I've had lots of pitches for people who have pitched great business ideas for technology that doesn't exist. Gosh, if it just wasn't for the speed of light, we could do this so much better. Yeah, it's a kind of physics thing. Can't do much about that. But you get that quite a bit. And then the other thing you see quite a bit is failed business plans. And so you've got technology now, a lot of pay-as-you-go technology. That still costs money. And I've seen startups who actually cannot create a viable business because their technology costs are going to be too large. right? People that sell storage way below cost was something that happened quite a bit. God bless you. And that was quite common, right? So it's like selling $20 bills for $10, for example. So you're actually not alone. It's about 87% of all startups suffer from a technology hangover. And there is actually just an overall lack of developers worldwide. And I think it's actually quite a bit more here in Asia. Because at least in other parts of the world, though, there's been more of a history of software development. Way back previous generations, guys programming, IBM and SAP, and not so much that we see here. So I think there's a few causes of a technology hangover that I wanted to kind of jump into. And a couple of cures that we can talk about. So that's actually me. I have that shirt. So one of the biggest causes I see of a technology hangover is you don't know your technology. You literally don't know what you're doing. So, and I'm talking about not just founders of businesses, I'm talking about investors. People are investing in these businesses, these internet startups, and you don't know how to code? Seriously, right? That's like, I'm gonna own a chain of restaurants and I don't know how to cook. I mean, I should at least have the very basics ideas about how code works, how technology works. And so it's actually a very easy cure. Learn to code. Everybody. If you're investing money, learn to code. If you're actually investing your life and your time, learn to code. It's not that hard. I know a very interesting CEO here in Singapore. He's very proud that he learned to code before he raised his last fund. And it's not hard. And this is going to be a big deal. Because once you actually just know how to code, even just a little bit, you're going to understand what technology is going to be able to do. Just like if I can cook just a little bit, I can at least identify who I think is going to be a good chef or not. I know the basic outlines, the basic rules. So I suggest to everybody here, spend a little bit of effort. If you want to do startups, spend a little time to learn to code. Most basic programming. It's going to give you a huge advantage now. Otherwise, you're basically depending on the opinions of other people to actually tell you, a piece of your startup or your investment that impacts probably half of its chances of success. And that's the technical part. I don't want to outsource that, right? I want to know that. I personally know how to code. Whenever I've gone into a startup and I've worked with businesses, I've learned the other side, okay? I've done legal tech. I know how litigation process works. I'm not great, but I understand the parameters. I can speak the language with my customers. I've done ad tech. I understand how ad buys work. Just enough. And that also means when people communicate with me and they tell me their business ideas, I can understand more what they're talking about. So think of it as a language that you can communicate with your technical co-founder, with developers, with people that are actually impacting your ability to succeed in your business. And it's easy, okay? And it's very important. Unsuccessful startups, this is a startup genome, do 2 to 3 times more code. Think about that. Unsuccessful startups spend 2 to 3 times more money and effort on developing technology. Are you going to trust other people to tell you whether that's good technology or not? So it's really easy. So I gave you some easy ways to start. These are some great resources. Paul Ford recently had a nice article, What is Code? Highly recommend that. And then learn to code in a little language. It doesn't matter which one. Python's a pretty easy one to pick up. There's a few other ones. I quite like Python the hard way because it's actually a book. There's no shortcuts. I've had a few VC friends that I've recommended that to. Google's actually got some great online Python courses, or any of the online academies have good courses. Spend an hour a week. It'll really change your outlook. You'll now have more control over the environment. You'll understand what you're investing in a bit more. You'll stop outsourcing a big piece of trust that's going to be important for your success. Bad decisions. So this is another cause I think I see of tech startups. So I will say bad tech decisions, not so much bad life decisions, of which I've got many. So let me give you an idea of what I mean by bad tech decisions. So let's talk about programming languages, I get asked a lot, what programming language should I do my startup? What should I use? Well, that's a good question. And I know people have done it in many, many, many different languages. But let's take a look. So here's a worldwide survey of the types of programming languages that developers know. This is off of Stack Overflow. So what do you know? Wow, a lot of people know JavaScript, SQL, Python. These are skills that have more supply. Right? You're going to need to hire up these people. You're going to get access to these skills. And here's what developers want to know. Okay, these are the hot languages they want to learn. Well, that's a very different list, isn't it? Nobody's really running to learn how to program databases with SQL, for example. Swift is pretty hot. That's from Apple. You can do all kinds of cool stuff. I don't even know what C++11 is. I don't want to know. Trust me. Rust, what is I don't Go is another one from Google. It's pretty cool. Now, why is that list so different? I understand why. Okay, so if I'm a developer, I get paid more if I know different languages. That makes sense. So I'm motivated by that. If I know a different language that's hot and sexy, I have a better career. That makes sense, right? So the point is, the developers, the technical people that you're working with, they might not actually tell you the type of technologies that's best for your startup or your investment. We're motivated a little bit differently, developers. We lie. I want to work in the coolest tech. Now, if I was going to do a startup here in this part of the world, guess what I would use as a language? I would use PHP. Why? There's a lot more developers. They cost less. I have a big supply. All right? It doesn't matter if another language will actually make it so that you can develop faster, because if you can find 3 people that can do that language or 100 people that can do the other language, guess what? I'm going to do it faster in one of the more easy-to-learn languages that have more developers. So, for example, I've got a friend who's invested in a startup. It's a great startup. They picked a language on this list. It is not on this list. They can't hire any developers. It doesn't matter how great that language was. They have no coders. And I know developers, they're not going to be that excited maybe to use some of these more popular languages, but there's other ways to motivate developers. And I've got a great team that I work with in Saigon, and they got excited because we were doing Ruby for a while, and then I'm like, no, guys, we're going to have to go back to PHP. And I could just see them like, but Ruby's so cool. And I'm like, yes, but you're horrible at Ruby. You're good at PHP. So you have to motivate the developers other ways, right? Give them different ways to do exciting work. So the point being, the technology that you pick need to be focused on what you're trying to achieve. And in this case, because there's very few technical resources in this part of the world, overall there's a glut, pick a language that's got a lot of people, a lot of availability, and low cost. Don't pick an obscure language because someone says, this one person can develop faster. Okay, you got to look as a team at the end at what you're trying to get to. And then the other really big kind of bad tech decision that I see quite a bit is not invented here. Not invented here is the guy who wants to program his own database or invent his own technology. The startups we're most interested in this part of the world especially, the ones that accelerate, are not usually inventing new technology. Right? In this case, you don't want to get locked into inventing technology that basically already exists. And then there's the concept of outsourcing. Do we outsource or do we insource? The fact is if you don't have your technology as part of your team, it greatly impacts your ability to succeed. I'm not saying you can't start off as outsourcing, but you're going to have that core component of your success has to be part of your team. They might sit in a different office, certainly. They might sit in Malaysia or another part of the world, but they need to be part of your team. So to make better tech decisions, first of all, pick affordable technology. Pick easy-to-learn languages that have a great supply in this part of the world, or wherever you're working. Use commodity services, okay? So do we have, is anyone here with like a cloud vendor in the audience? Yeah? So there's a whole room full of guys with free stuff to give you. Free hours of compute in the cloud, free databases that are already running. These are commodity services that make no difference to your success as a startup. No one cares how good your database is, for example. Use their stuff out there. They're out there just lining up. They're going to give you like free hundreds of thousands of dollars of all kinds of existing services. Go use that. Don't invent your own stuff. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to insource, too. Bring your team in-house. They're going to have to be a core part of what you're getting done. Lastly, I'm going to tell you is you need to get a tech co-founder. Maybe not this guy if you watch this show. But you are going to need to get eventually a tech co-founder. And the big thing with getting a good tech co-founder is, well, first of all, because you know how to code, you know how to talk to this tech co-founder. You're going to ask him what kind of languages he's going to use and why, right? You're going to take and make sure that this guy's going to use commodity services. Okay, a good tech co-founder is not your buddy who can code. In fact, I'm not a great coder, to be honest. I'm okay. But if you give me a job, I'll get it done. I can build a team of people. I can look towards that end. Your good tech co-founder is the one who's going to say, we're going to do it in this language because I can get it done. I can get people hired. Who's going to be aligned with what you guys are going to do. And eventually, hopefully, this is going to be someone who's going to, you're going to grow into. And you're going to have to pitch to them. This is going to be your biggest pitch. Probably bigger than funding. I'm trying to treat this as if you're going right in front of those big VCs. You're going to have to pitch to them the same way. And then you're going to have to woo them. Okay. A good co-founder is not going to come on as an employee. He's not going to come on as part-time. You're going to have to work out an equity agreement with them. You can bring them in on probation. You don't have to give them half. But you're going to have to make it very compelling. You're going to have to bring them in full-time. So that's about it. Just real quick, a little bit about how to cure your technical hangover, as well as your real hangover. Learn to code. Pick easy tech that you can use, that's commoditized, that has a lot of people, and really make it as a high priority. Get a technical co-founder. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Appreciate you sitting through that. Sorry if you got a bit of a headache. Have a great day today.